Rapid pace out here early in the second. Levert, hey, knocks it down. Rondo's on the run. Stops, gets Love fires. Cavs reset with a fresh 14. Under 3 to go in the half. Garland works on Holiday. Lost it for a moment. Shovels to Mobley. Garland, step back three, drew a foul, knocks it down.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of ages, you are listening live here to episode number 21 of the All Things Cavalier Podcast. I am your host, as always, Brandon Lewis, back here with my regular co-host, Joey Schneider. Joey, it's good to have you back.
Oh my God, I missed it so much. It sucked really badly not being here last week. Very energized. It's actually probably a good thing I wasn't here last week, because I don't know if I would have been able to say what I wanted to on the podcast. A lot of swear words would have been coming out. So it's really good that I've calm, collected. The Cavs have won a couple of games, even though they had to come back for the fourth time against the Indiana Pacers. But I think that skid, over maybe 1-2 in a row. Got a lot to talk about today. I want to start with something real quick that we didn't talk about. Is Darius Garland, is he a superstar right now?
So last week, me and Josh Unger, and thank you, Josh, for filling in for Joey last week, we talked about this. And I mentioned that what I noticed when Darius Garland was out those games, he is clearly our best player. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I think, and we've talked about this a lot, in order to be a championship level team, you have to have at least one superstar. And from what I've seen since Darius Garland has been out of the lineup, and now that he's back, obviously we saw what he did against Philadelphia, getting the 18-19 assists. We saw what he did last night, basically not scoring very much in the first half, then taking over against Indiana and scoring over 40 to pull us to victory. That is what superstars do. They know, especially at the point guard position, they know how to get their teammates involved, they know how to score, and they are the floor generals on the court. I think out of all of the pieces that the Cavs have missed this year, whether it's been Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen, Darius Garland has clearly hurt the most, which shows you his value. And so, in my long roundabout answer, I believe the answer is yes. I think this year Darius Garland has proven that he is not only a franchise point guard, but a superstar player that should be consistently in the All-Star games and on the NBA marketing marquee.
Don't forget, he also had 13 assists to go with those 41 points last night. And that, again, come from behind victory against the Pacers, which we always seem to need to do against Indiana. They play us tough. I only asked that question because there seems to be a lack. I mean, I think that we've talked about this before. There is a lack of offense, especially when Darius Garland isn't on the floor. This is a reason why we need Caris LeVert back, because he can create his own shot. I really want to see them on the floor together for an extended period of time. I mean, that's something that I really want to see. That what kind of offensive firepower are we really going to have with them? But Garland has just been playing so well. And, these last two games really have calmed my nerves a little bit. I thought Toronto was going to be a very rough game for the Cavs. They're very tall, just like the Cavs. They got really good young players. They got a deep bench. I thought that was a really tough test for them, and the Cavs ended up coming out on top. Doing part two. Really a team effort from Garland. I believe he had 17 points, 10 assists that game. Markkanen, huge, 22 points, 12 rebounds. Mobley. And I think we need to talk about, the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Big JA going out with I think that first they said it was a quad contusion, and then they said it was a broken finger.
On one of the most freakish plays, by the way, I've seen this. He blocks the shot, and I'm like, what? They're saying he hit his. I'm looking at the hand where he blocked. I thought he caught it on the ball. They're saying it's the other hand that he hit on the rim.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how? Like, and it's unfortunate because JA has been playing really well. But one of the things that we have kind of noticed here, and we've talked about this throughout the course of the season now, is because of that, Evan Mobley last night gets inserted in that starting lineup at the 5. Obviously, gets 17 big rebounds against Toronto, but he needs to now become that guy that we have been saying here for the past month or so, being more aggressive on the glass, being more aggressive defensively, scoring, and doing all those things that we expected him to be as the number 3 pick out of USC.
So something that me and Brandon talked about right before we started this podcast, and I wasn't going to say it on the podcast, but I feel like it needs to be said. When Jarrett Allen went out, it seemed like Evan Mobley realized he needed to step up. So I don't know if he was using Jarrett Allen as a cushion, because he's had really good games with Jarrett Allen in the lineup. But against Toronto, Allen went out. Was it Toronto or Philly?
Yeah, it was Toronto.
It was Toronto, really early in the game. And he ended up finishing the game with 20 points, 17 boards, 3 blocks, a couple of assists.
5 steals, by the way, too.
That was last night against the Pacers. Against the Pacers, 22 points, 12 boards, 5 steals, a block, 4 assists, a huge alley-oop to Dean Wade. I mean, it seems like he has now this urgency to step up and be the rookie of the year that he's been all season. No more of these lackadaisical games where he goes 4-1 and 4. Like, now is the time to be the superstar that we need you to be. You have had this massive, I don't want to say burden put on you, because he is, in my opinion, the best rookie. He is the rookie of the year. And obviously there's really good rookies this year with Scotty Barnes and Cade Cunningham. And you could go down the line. For people who thought this was going to be a weak draft, Franz Wagner from Orlando and Josh Giddey from OKC, really, really good rookies this year. But Mobley is on another level. He can do things that a lot of these other rookies can't do. He's 7 feet tall. He can jump out of the building. If he just stays aggressive, excuse me, if he just stays aggressive and continues to do what he's done these last 2 games, he's going to be unstoppable. He's going to be the rookie of the year. He's going to be an all-star next year. And he just needs to keep improving his game, put some weight on that frame, because let's face it, he does need to do that. But he can hit the 3. He needs to work on his jumper a little bit. I've noticed that the last few games. I don't know if maybe it's nerves or what, but it seems like his jumper's kind of not been as great as it was in the beginning of the season. But, shoot through it. This kid has superstar written all over him. And if now I think he needs to realize that potential, because we don't have Jarrett Allen. We lost one of our bigs. And, I think that could lead us into our next topic, which is, you think we're going to get another big somewhere in free agency?
I do not. I think that I really think that they like playing Mobley at the 5, and I think that they somewhat like Ed Davis coming off the bench. I think Ed Davis is that veteran who, let's face it, he came in there such that I'm going to be complete. I kind of forgot we had Ed Davis on the roster. We haven't seen him in forever. He comes in and it's like, oh yeah, we have Ed Davis. He's always getting ready. He's diving on the floor. He's just doing his thing. He's a really solid role player. And I think also that they are going to have, as I said, Mobley at the 5. You're going to have Ed Davis back him up. I could even see them sometimes maybe even putting Love at the 5. If you want to put just Love and Marketing together on the floor, maybe you have a combination of Love, Marketing, Jetty, Okoro, Garland, something like that, if you want a little bit more shooting on the floor. But I think, it all depends on the timeline, though, too, because I've heard some timelines say, 1 to 2 weeks. I've heard others say, JB Vickers, that say they don't even know if he's going to be back for the regular season. And we know right now the Cavs are in kind of this tight spot where they're the 6th seed right now, but they're only also a couple games back of the 2 or the 3 seed. So I do think, too, it depends on the schedule. How are these guys playing? Are they winning games? Are we getting enough production out of the bigs? But I think right now, I don't know if you necessarily need to add a big. Joey, you're muted.
I want to say this, and I know this is going to sound a little weird, but if the season ended right now, we would be playing Milwaukee in the first round, and I think we would beat Milwaukee.
I disagree with you. For 2 reasons. Number one, I think the Bucks are the best player on the court, regardless, any night. So I think Giannis is the best player on the court. Number 2, I think playoff experience matters a lot. And Milwaukee is now the defending world champions. They have that playoff experience. They won for last year. The Cavs are still a very young team. I know. We took care of them in the regular season. I still cannot get that game out of my head. I know we match up well with them, but I think the playoffs are a different animal. I think a 7-game series is a different animal. And the way this team, I think it's all about momentum, right? If you took the way Milwaukee's been playing right now, if you say the season ended there and we play them right now, if you take the way the Cavs have been playing without Jared Allen, and you take the Bucks right now the way they've been playing with Giannis, Bobby Portis has had a really good year. Chris Middleton has been really heating it up as of late. I think we give them a challenge. I think we push them to a 5 or 6 game series. But I don't know if right now, because I think the playoffs are all about depth, and I think that they are all about star power. And I think Milwaukee has both of those advantages over us in a 7-game series.
The reason that I say that is I just think the Cavs match up better with the Bucks than the Sixers or the Bulls or, God forbid, the Heat, which the Heat scare the living crap out of me right now. I wasn't scared of them before, but now that Victor Oladipo is back, I mean, he played 11 minutes his first game back, had 14 points, 3 boards, 3 assists, something like that. They're playing the long game. Not only do they have the best record in the East, they're now the number 1 seed, but now they're getting another star back. I mean, oh my God, that's a scary team right now. But I think that can you imagine if we played the Bucks in the first round and knocked them out?
It would be insane. We've talked about, expectations here, bro. I've said, constantly the honeymoon phase is over, expectations are changing. The Eastern Conference, we haven't really dove too much into this about the East, but obviously we all feel like at this point the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to make the postseason. We are rapidly watching the standings because the standings, as we've said, are changing every day. We could be the 6th seed, we could be the 3 seed, we could be the 2 seed. To me, it really depends on what seed we are and who we match up against. Boston is a very good, well-built team. You mentioned Miami. They are probably going to be, at this point, the number 1 seed. They have a lot of depth to go with Jimmy Butler and Victor Oladipo and Kyle Lowry. And I'm pretty sure Bam Adebayo is going to be back. If not, he's already back. So you have that with the Heat, and then you throw in Philadelphia with Joel Embiid and James Harden. And so there's a lot of competition, and that's why I feel like this year the Cavs, just as much as we thought early in the season this team could potentially go to the semis or the Eastern Conference, I kind of push back on that now over the last couple of weeks. I just don't think we have enough firepower to go and win against one of those top 4 teams in a 7-game series from what I've seen over the last couple of weeks.
I'm going to reserve my opinion on that until a little later on. And the reason is because I want to see Caris LeVert in that starting lineup, because if he can provide the firepower that the Cavaliers need to compete, then that's going to be a huge difference maker. Huge. I mean, if Caris LeVert can go for 20 plus points a game, that is a huge, piece of the puzzle that's been missing, because we've got, we've talked forever about needing to get out to these, to bigger leads, and we have in a lot of games recently, and then we've blown it.
And that's one of my problems with this team is it's so frustrating because it feels like either we start out the game really slow and then we come back in the second half and make it a game, or we do the complete opposite. We start off shooting on fire. Against Philadelphia, I think we shot 75% in the first quarter. We were building a 20, 25-point lead. That evaporates by almost halftime. Which again, in the NBA today, the 3-point shot is so big and so great. It's really hard to hold a 20-point lead throughout the course of a ball game, but you at least have to, try to hold serve, I would say, and bring that game home. And they just can't do it right now. And it's so frustrating because I never feel like let's put it this way. I never feel like that we're completely out of a game. Obviously, Charlotte, and never really, Charlotte just shot the lights out against us. Never really thought we'd get back in that ball game. I never feel like that we're out of a ball game, but I never feel like we have a game in control either.
Well, I think one of the things is that Rondo was out, Levert's been out, so we have been gassed because it seems like Bickerstaff is able to find the group that is actually making a comeback or going out to a big lead, and then they're completely gassed by the end of the game. So we had Rondo last night. He was able, he didn't do a whole lot, but he was at least able to get Garland some rest before coming back in. If we have Levert, then you can rest Coro or whoever. Levert will probably start. He should start, in my opinion, but you're not going to have these guys who are completely gassed at the end of the game trying to pull out a victory or trying to hang on. Like, these guys are going to be able to sustain their energy because there's enough reserves to stay in and build upon leads, as opposed to just getting tired, giving them up, having and then having to kind of reset and figure out what to do. So I'm not going to say that I don't believe the Cavs can get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think it would be extremely tough, and to honestly sit here and say that the Cavs can win the NBA Finals, which I have said, and I do believe that any team can go to the play. If you're in the playoffs, you can win the NBA Finals. But to say that the Cavs are going to win the NBA Finals in the first year of them actually even being competitive in a very long time would be a little bit foolish. But I've been known to be a little bit foolish, so I'm not going to write them off, because there's still a lot of things that we haven't seen this year. Caris LeVert has played, I think, 3 games with the Cavs, 3 or 4 games with the Cavs. So I want to see him and what he can do. I want to see him with the starting lineup. I don't want to see him come off the bench. I want to see what he could do with the starting lineup. Obviously, if it doesn't work out, then adjustments need to be made. But he's got a lot of firepower to help us not only build the big leads, but then maintain those leads instead of giving them up because we're gassed. I want to see, and obviously the other thing I want to see is, can Evan Mobley maintain what he's done the last 2 games? He is like I said, in my opinion, he's one of the best rookies of this class, if not the best. And with Jared Allen out, we need him to step up and be the superstar. Unfortunately, it's a little before, you kind of want to develop, players, but he's got to grow up fast now. Jared Allen's out. Now's the time to put your foot on the gas and become the star. Now speaking of Evan Mobley and speaking of rookies, in my opinion, there's a 2-man race for Rookie of the Year, potentially 3. I think it's Evan Mobley. I think it could be Scotty Barnes. Those are my top 2. It could be Cade Cunningham, but I just can't see it with him being on the Pistons and them being, the record that they have, even though they've beaten the Cavs twice. Oh God, I'm frustrated because the Pistons One of the worst records in the league, and they beat the Cavs twice.
We've also lost to Houston, by the way.
I don't, Brandon. I'm not ready right now. I don't want to start getting angry. Anyway, it could be Cade Cunningham. I honestly, unless they somehow go on some ridiculous streak and he gets a triple-double every game, I don't think he's in it. So for me, it's down to Scotty Barnes and Evan Mobley. Now, I remember me and you talked before we even did our very first podcast. And who did I tell you was going to be the surprise rookie?
Scotty Barnes, right?
That's Scotty Barnes. I said Scotty Barnes was going to be a great player in the NBA. And that's not a flex. It's just, I'm just that good. that was a total flex. Anyway, Mobley, it's down to Mobley and Barnes. Barnes has been able to show leadership on a team that has leaders. He's been able to kind of, the Raptors kind of seemed out of it earlier in the season.
I agree with you.
And he's done a great job. And he's had, of bringing them back. And he's had some big games too, just like Mobley. He's had some down games, obviously, just like Mobley as well. But for me personally, and this is a, I'm not being a homer here. A complete, just analysis of players. Evan Mobley has meant more to the Cavs than Scotty Barnes has to the Raptors. And it's very close. That's a very close thing to say, because I don't want to say, but I think that the Raptors would still be probably in the position they're in without Scotty Barnes. It just would have been a different player. And I think they've been without OG Anunoby and, for a little bit. Pascal Siakam was hurt earlier in the season.
Van Vliet's hurt now.
Yeah, Van Vliet's hurt. So I think, a healthy Raptors would have been okay without Scotty Barnes, but that they're way better with him. But I think Evan Mobley has been a very integral part of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's had some monster games. He's 6th in the league in blocks right now. I think he's still 2nd or 3rd in contested shots. He makes people have to take all sorts of ridiculous shots with his defense. He can jump out of the building. He can, it seems like he puts up 20 points when he doesn't even try.
Right.
So for me, the rookie of the year would be Evan Mobley. I want to get your thoughts on that race. Is there someone maybe you think besides those two that could jump into it? Okay.
Not at all. I think it's down between Mobley and Barnes, and I completely agree with you. I think it helps Mobley that nobody expected the Cavs to be where they are. He's been a big part of that, as has everybody else. I think Toronto, I think you're right. They would have been a 7-8 seed, maybe in that play-in tournament if it's not Scotty Barnes, if it's somebody else. But I will say this. I think it also depends on here down the stretch how both teams do. Because the Cavs have a very tough schedule. So, and I don't know Toronto's schedule. Let's go based off the Cavs schedule. Let's say the Cavs somehow, some way, because I know we're up 3.5 games on Toronto for that 7th seed. But let's say somehow the Cavs fizzle out down the stretch, and some way, somehow, disappointingly, we do make the play-in tournament. And let's say Toronto somehow jumps us, or Scotty Barnes maybe somehow has these big games, and Toronto is winning, and maybe Mobley, isn't doing as productive late down the season. Maybe he doesn't have the takeover games like he did against Indiana and Toronto. If that's the case, I would say Barnes. At this point, now I think it's a little bit closer than it was at the beginning of the year. Probably December, January, I would say probably 90% Evan Mobley was going to win Rookie of the Year. It was really, a slam dunk. I don't know if it's necessarily a slam dunk. I would still put Mobley as the overwhelming favorite. I knock it down to probably 65-70% Mobley, because I do optimistically think that he is going to be the guy here, the second star that we need him to be. By the way, if the Cavs are going to win a playoff series, he needs to be the second and third guy. When J.A. comes back, he needs to start being that guy now. I have faith that will happen. And I do think that Mobley does win Rookie of the Year, but Scotty Barnes has had a real good year for Toronto. I know you were a bigger fan of him than I was. He certainly has surprised me. So credit to him. but at this point, Mobley is the rookie of the year.
I do want to say, you were talking about the Raptors schedule. They got a very tough schedule as well.
Okay.
They got this, not to talk about the Toronto Raptors that much, but they got the Spurs tonight. Then they got to play the Suns, Nuggets, Lakers twice, Sixers, Bulls, Cavs, Pacers, and Celtics, and then Timberwolves.
Yeah, it's a very similar schedule to us, so it'll be a good competition down the stretch. I want to throw something at you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to Levert. And we were talking about the starting lineup and how Dean Wade, and we got to talk about this a little bit off the air about, yes, Dean Wade's in the starting lineup now because J.A. is out, but Dean's not playing that many minutes. I want to say this. Let me throw this at you, because we talked about Okoro is our best defensive player. So until J.A. comes back, and we talked about the big man lineup, but what would you think about sliding Okoro to the 3 and Levert at the 2, just until J.A. comes back, so you can keep your best defensive player in Okoro on the court in that starting lineup instead of Wade?
Well, if you did that, then you would lose. Oh, wait, no, never mind.
No,
Sorry.
you put Markin at the 4 and Mobley at the 5.
Yeah, Markin at the 4. No, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I would do. And honestly, you can switch them really 2-3, to 2 to 3. Okoro 6'5", Levert 6'6", I believe 6'6" or 6'7". So I mean, you can swap them between the two. I don't think that it really matters, honestly. And yeah, I think that you need Okoro on the floor to guard your best player. I will tell you, and not to kind of divert a little bit, but coming off the bench, I think Lamar Stevens might be your second best defender.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit off the air, but Lamar Stevens, it's not like he didn't play for a month. And then he comes in, the Cavs have these guys. And again, credit to Dean Wade, who I mentioned last week, and Lamar Stevens have the 2 weirdest minutes on the team. Some nights they play 30 minutes, other nights they play 0 minutes. But credit to these guys, though, Brandon Goodwin as well for someone in with Rajon Rondo's out. Some of these guys, some nights, listen, they have terrible games, and I want them off the team. Other nights, they come in, and Brandon Goodwin, I think it was the game against Watt. I didn't say this last week, but I was like, man, we got to get Rondo back. This dude can't make. And then he comes up against Minnesota and scores like 15, 16 points in the first. And that's what you're going to get from a guy who's a little bit inconsistent and undrafted player. We talked about this all year long, though. For guys like Dean Wade, for guys like Goodwin, for guys like Lamar Stevens, for undrafted players, we have producers everywhere. And Lamar Stevens made 2 key defensive plays last night in that Indiana game. Basically saved the game when Marketing got driven by. Stevens with a great block and would have tied the game. Then he's able to hit the free throw at the end of the ball game to win the game. So, we've talked about this all year long with the first and second unit. When Levert gets back, you could have NJA gets back. You're probably going to put Okoro then back on the bench. You have Okoro. I'd mix in Lamar Stevens. You have Kevin Love. You have Jetty Osman. I think that bench unit is a little bit better than I anticipated.
Well, I think that is kind of what one of my points was earlier when we were talking about, things was that they get, we've gotten gassed in a lot of these games because we haven't, we've been hurt or we haven't had people in. So we do have a solid bench. Lamar Stevens literally won the Brooklyn game almost single-handedly for us. He scored, the first 11 points of the half. And, I know that was a while ago and people don't want to talk about history, but
that was against Utah, I believe.
Utah, you're right. I'm sorry. You're Utah. Still, it's a really good team.
Yeah.
So, to not see these players play, and then when they do come in, they do these great things. It's like, well, okay, you could see Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and whoever else has been playing in that unit just sucking wind. Why is Lamar Stevens not playing? That's the thing. Those are the things that I'm still not understanding, and maybe it's not for me to understand. But as you know, us as people who are journalists and are, we're supposed to question, why is a guy who has played great off the bench all year suddenly not playing? And then all of a sudden we see him for 4 or 5 games. Then, he turns into Ed Davis at the end of the bench again. And, I will say congratulations to Dean Wade on that absolute posterizing dunk that he had last night against the Pacers.
Absolutely amazing.
I did not expect that from him, but that was it made me take back all my negativity from Dean Wade.
Hey, listen, one of the things that I want this team to do more is run. You mentioned Dean Wade posterizing, Evan Mobley taking it the alley-oop to Dean Wade. One of the things that drives me nuts, and I said it last week when Garland was out, and obviously we love Darius Garland, but Isaac Okoro was the only guy who off a rebound, he got the ball and was boom, right to the basket. We don't take advantage as much of off a steal or off a rebound. Just run. You have numbers. We're slowing it down, setting up a play. Like, okay, I get it. Like, that's Garland's nature, but like, I get it. But we do not. That's what I'm saying. This is the thing that irks me about this team. And I think that one of the things me and you both do well is, whether it's a win or a loss, sometimes you can see bad habits coming out of wins. Sometimes you can see good habits coming out of loss. Oftentimes, it's not the final score of the game. It's, well, how did this game transpire? Or how did this thing? One of the things that still perplexes me about this team is, like, we just don't put it all together some nights. Whether it's a win or a loss, it's like, oh, we have an easy basket here. We don't take advantage of it. Or, oh, we give up. We're up 16 points against Indiana in the fourth quarter after coming back down 10. Indiana comes back and they got some nice players. I'm not going to sit here and say they're complete bumps. They got some nice players. They're in a rebuild mode. There's no excuse for them to be shooting 50% from three. There's no excuse for this Cavs team, who is the number 1 rated defensive team in the league at some point. We're still in the top 5, giving up 100 points for 3 quarters. These are things that need to be corrected, and hopefully a guy like a Lamar Stevens, and maybe they get the rotation back on track here when Levert comes back. It's one of the things that they needed to do. Hopefully, when everybody knows their role outside of the starters, and it feels like Kevin Love and Jetty Osman, feels like those are the only 7 people right now that really know their role. Hopefully that will get it all fixed, and hopefully we have a good March.
Well, I think a lot of that comes back to your question about, the starting lineup in Levert. Yeah, I think that has to be the starting lineup, which is, what you said, Garland, Levert, Okoro, Markkanen, Mobley. That's your starting lineup, because you don't want to mess with that bench chemistry, which we've talked about in prior podcasts. Osman is a better player off the bench. Love is a better player. This year has been a better player off the bench. You don't want to insert him in the starting lineup. We've seen Stevens be great. We've seen Dean Wade do good things, off the bench as well. There's just a lot of players who are better off of the bench. So yes, we need to get back to what made us the team that we are now, which I think we're slowly getting back to, which is defense and running the freaking floor.
We have not ran the floor consistently. We need to run the floor. Take advantage of it. When a guy is down and drove, I am screaming at the TV, and I usually do not go crazy. I'm watching a game. I'm like, oh, that's a good play. Like, I'm usually not animated. I'm sitting there last time, I'm going, boys, he is laying down. I don't know. There was some way up for Indiana. I think it was Jordan or Washington. One of those guys missed a way up. Mobley got the rebound. Garland's coming for the ball to bring it up, and Mobley's like, no, bro, screw you. I'm running this floor. And boom, there's Dean Wade wide open for an alley-oop. That is what we need to do more of.
Well, that is a big reason of why we actually beat Toronto. We ran the floor so well against the Raptors, and you could see, because the Raptors do the same thing. The Raptors are not they are not that much different of a team than the Cleveland Cavaliers.
They're really not. You're right.
They tried the good defense. They're long, they're tall, and they run the floor. That's exactly what the Cavs do. but the Cavs were able to do it better, and that's why they got the win. And don't forget, that win was huge because not only did it put us another game up on Toronto, but it gave us a tiebreaker as well. So if somehow at the end of the season we end up with the same record as the Toronto Raptors,
we'd be the 6th seed and they'd be in the play-in tournament.
Exactly. So, after all that being said, I kind of feel like, they're getting back to that, which is what made them, that's what brought them to where they are now. The defense and the running the floor. For the last, except the last 2 games, the 7 games prior, 8 games prior, it seems like we got away from that. I don't know, and JB Biggerstaff said what he said, that the challenges are coming and the team just doesn't give, you know what? So you got to get back to the basics. Defense, run the floor. That has been your bread and butter all year. You have the personnel to do it. That's what let's get Levert back in the lineup. Let's get him healthy. Let's see what he can do. Add some firepower to take that pressure off of Darius Garland and just, keep on pushing, keep on getting to the, getting these wins, whether they're blowouts or whether they're close ground out games. I don't even care anymore. I don't care. Yes, I don't know the last time the Cavs blew a team out was. It was a while ago. But, at this point, a win's a win.
I think the last blowout win we had was that game that you and your daughter went to against San Antonio.
Yeah, that may have been it. Again, Uncle Ruben, thank you for the tickets.
Well, speaking of wins, Joey, now let's see if we can continue those wins. We go into this weekend. We have a huge back-to-back tilt with the Miami Heat, which has been our house of horrors outside of this year. But remember, we did beat them. They did not have Jimmy Butler that night. They obviously did not have Victor Oladipo. Bam Adebayo, I don't even think was playing in that game. Kyle Lowry might have been playing in that game. I don't even remember at that point. So, that's going to be a different Miami team we face. Then we go into Chicago, and the last time we went into that building, if you guys recall, it was for, at the time, the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Cavs never took advantage. I was waiting to add first place in the Eastern Conference or All Things Cavs Twitter feed, which involves at All Things Cavs. Never happened. And then on top of that, we returned back home Monday to Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse to take on a Clippers team minus Paul George and minus Kawhi Leonard, but who are still going to be in the play-in tournament out there out west. So when you take a look at these next 3 games, Joey, we know it's very tough, but we got to win at least 2 of the 3, right?
I think I want to win all 3. We need to win 2 of the 3. And if we get Levert and his firepower, I think we have a good chance of taking 2 of the 3. But the Cavs have got to prove that they can beat a healthy Heat and a healthy Bulls. I mean, DeRozan's been shooting the lights out. He's almost, you can almost put him up there as an MVP candidate. I don't think he'd win, but he's definitely a candidate. But man, these next, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the games after that.
It's Philly's in there. I have the next Wednesday. I know that. And then I know the
Nuggets.
Lakers are in there somewhere. I think Dallas is in there. It's definitely a very tough schedule. My worry here, though, is Garland sits one of the 2 back-to-backs. I don't know if it's going to be Miami. I don't know if it's going to be Chicago. But for some reason, I have a feeling they're not going to play him back-to-back.
I think they will. I think they will, and I'll tell you why. I think that they're going to play him back-to-back because these are 2 extremely, extremely important games, and it's. If they somehow beat the Miami Heat, you gain a game on the Heat. Although, we're in the 6th seed. So there's a lot of other chips that need to fall too with other teams losing. If you beat the Heat, you then have an opportunity to go and beat the Bulls, which then gains us a game on the Bulls. these are obviously big games because they're propelling you toward a better seed in the Eastern Conference. I can see them maybe resting him against the Clippers. Now I understand you don't usually rest a player, not during a back-to-back. But if you're gonna rest them, kind of give them a little bit of an extended break and rest them against the Clippers, because I think that's the game that the Cavs will obviously win. And if they don't, we've said that about Detroit, we've said that about Houston, and they just for some reason struggle with the teams, even though the Clippers are still in. That's a pretty weak without
record. Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard.
Well, they have a weak record to still be in. They're in that bottom part of the West, so that it's a game that the Cavs should win. But that would be a game that I would probably look at resting Darius Garland. If you were to rest them, you can't rest them against the Heat or the Bulls. But I'm going to go, and I'm going to optimistically say that the Cavs are going to go 2-1. I honestly think that I think they're going to lose to the Heat, and I hate to say that. I have faith that they can win. I just think that this is a fully healthy Heat team that might want a little bit of revenge for that beatdown that they got the last time. I think that the Cavs come back and play a good game and beat the Bulls finally, and they take care of business against the Clippers, whether it's with or without Darius Garland. I think that the Cavs are going to have enough firepower, and I think Levert should probably be back by the time they play the Clippers, which is why I'm saying that if they were to rest Garland, that might be the game that they do it. So I'm going 2-1. I'm going to say that a loss to the Heat, unfortunately, but a win against the Bulls and a win against the Clippers. And I think the next time that we talk, I think some losses are going to happen. And I think the Cavs might even be in the 5th seed again.
Listen, at the very beginning of the season, everyone knows I was very pessimistic about this team. Mm-hmm. And midway through the season, I was very optimistic about this team. Mm-hmm. Over the last couple weeks, I've been a little bit more on the pessimistic side because the expectations have changed. I'm going to flip-flop again. I am actually going to be optimistic. I think that the 2 days off are going to help this team. I think we're going to shock Miami. Ooh. I think we go down there. I think Evan Mobley has the game of his life. Solidifies the Rookie of the Year candidacy by putting all of those Miami Heat under the basket on a poster. I'm calling it right now. Wow. I think this team, I'm making a bold prediction here. I think this team is starting to hear the chatter a little bit about, maybe we're not as good as we think we are. Maybe with the 2 days, maybe we see Levert on Friday or Saturday. Who knows? Maybe we get him back in there. I think for some reason, Isaac Okoro rises up. He takes on Jimmy Butler. He rises to the occasion. I think it's a very nick and tough basketball game. I think this team defeats the Heat. Ooh. And then I think the next night they're tired, and I actually don't think the Chicago game goes as well. So I'm going to flip-flop with you. I think they come out ready to go against Miami, and I think they get a little tired against Chicago. I think it's a close game. Chicago pulls away late, and then they bounce back Monday and at home take care of the Los Angeles Clippers.
You know what? I like that. I respect it. I think, I think as long as they go at least 2-1, doesn't matter who they beat. Too bad they can't beat the Clippers twice in one game, but. You know what? Got to get back to these winning ways. Got to go, 2-1. Got to take these games. Got to show that we can beat these good teams. That is what I have been saying. Podcast after podcast after podcast. We have got to show we can beat these good teams when healthy, and we need to do it now. So let's go, Cavs. This is what needs to happen.
Joey, completely agree with you. We're going to wrap it up there for today. It was good to have you back here at our virtual Zoom booth. I'm going to let you have the last words.
I miss this so much. What an absolute pleasure to be back, Brandon. Always just, I'm giddy with excitement when I get to do the podcast with you, brother. Always fun. Love watching the Cavs games, watching them back, and again 3-4 times trying to dissect what everything's going. So I missed it, even though it was just 1 week. And Brandon, obviously there's only one thing left to do.
Let 'em know.